Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready for the Wot Supp podcast. With your host, Stu OG Industry Shannon and Will Warren Davey, new school formulator extraordinaire. We're talking all things supplements with insiders, athletes, experts, and more. So sit back, relax, and prepare to find out what's up.
Okay, welcome to episode 21 of the Wot Supp podcast, guys. You have our usual co-host, Stu Shannon, on today. Say good morning, Stu.
G'day, guys. How's it going? I'm really excited about this one, Will.
Oh, it's going to be a great episode because we have none other than the IFBB Pro, Katie Morris, joining us today. Good morning, Kate. Good afternoon, I should say. Thanks for joining us. And on pretty short notice, too. We really appreciate you being flexible on this one because we think you've got some really good content to, some really good value to give to our listeners today. So I look forward to picking your brain on a few things around competing, nutrition, and all things in the sports space. So should be a cool episode.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me on, guys. I'm looking forward to having a chat with you both today.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, Katie, look, we might crack into things, I guess, with a little bit of an introduction to you. Like a lot of people who are following our podcast are already in the Australian kind of fitness and supplement industry. So a lot already know who you are, but for those that don't, Katie's an IFBB Bikini Pro now, but that's not the way it started, right, Katie?
Yeah, that's correct. I started competing in 2005 and turned pro 2015, end of 2015 at the Amateur Olympia in the Gold Coast in the figure division. So I went neck to neck with an incredible competitor, Jenkins, for the short class figure title. And then I made it through to the overall, and I actually placed runner-up in the overall against Jocelyn, but at the time the rule was if you placed runner-up in an international amateur Olympia, then you were entitled to your pro status regardless of winning or coming second on the stage on the day. So I actually didn't win my pro status on stage on the day, but it very quickly was organised in, behind the scenes, sort of probably within about 72 hours of actually coming off stage. And then Robin Chang, who is the promoter of the Olympia, was there because that's his gig as well. He's the promoter of the Amateur Olympia and the Big Olympia. And I spoke to him backstage, and he gave me some very encouraging feedback, and he watched me in the overall, and he said, he told me that I had a huge future in the sport and just to keep chipping away. And obviously I went home that day with the Amateur Olympia short class figure title, the national short class figure title, but not the pro card. But I didn't actually go there for the pro card that day. It's funny. I spent probably from 2011, I did the very first FitX Pro, let me get this right, FitX Pro Q Figure Pro qualifier. So before we had the Arnold Classic in Melbourne, it was called FitX. And I did every single Pro Q except for 2013. So 2011, I missed out. 2012, I missed out. 2013, I took a year off to grow. 2014, I didn't even make it through to the overall. So 2015 was the first year of the Arnold Classic, but we still had the figure pro qualifier. So I believe I was put into the wrong height class. There was a weird thing going on where people were wearing shoes they weren't meant to be wearing, and I ended up in figure medium class, but I think some people that were in there should have been in short, or I don't know. It was a bit weird because there was all these restrictions on the platform of your shoes. And I think some people ended up in divisions they shouldn't have been in. But long story short, I was beaten by a girl that absolutely deserved to win the height class. And she came from INBA. She was an INBA superstar. Her name was Molly Bryce.
Yeah, I know Molly. I follow her on all her socials and stuff like that. So I guess I know her well enough. But yeah, was in very, very, very good shape when she was competing at that time.
Yeah, so she has crazy structure, and it was just structure that I couldn't compete with. I can compete, I believe, with anybody in the condition basket, but structure is not a strength of mine, but actual bone structure and, I guess genetics. So I had to go head to head with her, and she just was the best on the day. So she went through to the overall, but at the end of that year, so 11, 12, 13, 14, so that would have been 5 whole years where my goal was the pro card, the pro status. But something funny happened when I did that show with Molly and I never got through to the overall. I said to myself, I felt like I had an honest conversation with myself off the back of that show, and I was so happy with how I came in at that show. But coming away from it, I was A, proud of the physique I put on stage, but B, I made a decision when I decided I was going to go to the Amateur Olympia that I just was going to have a shot at that national title. And I actually wasn't going there for the pro card. I knew that there was a pro card on offer, and I knew that someone had to leave that day with that pro card, but I wasn't going there with the pro card front of mind. I was going there to come home as the Australian champion.
Yeah. Something I've found really, really cool, you know, and you're talking about all these years that you tried and were, you know, I guess, pipped at the post by other girls. We look now at, you know, if anyone who follows you on your socials and all that sort of thing, will see that those girls who beat you on those occasions, some of those are your best friends now. You know, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of, in this sport, it doesn't seem like there's as much bitchiness and stuff like that as people might think especially, you know, people might assume that in the female categories there'd be a lot of that.
Yeah.
But you girls were basically all like best friends now, right? You've got a whole crew of girls that you've competed against.
Yeah, so I would say 90% of my closest girlfriends I have met through the sport of bodybuilding, and that really is a real nice takeaway point, I think, for girls coming up through the sport. You know, I don't think that it's always like that. But my personal experience has been definitely that, yeah, 90%, I mean, I'm 43 years old, so 90% of my close girlfriends I have met through the sport of bodybuilding. And I would have to say that apart from my sport taking me literally all around the world, and my passion and my sport, the best thing that's come out of me being a part of the sport of bodybuilding is the friendships that I've developed. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just want to shoot this one to Katie. Will I will give you a chance, I promise.
No worries.
Katie, I just wanted to rewind back a little bit, though. You know, like you're obviously very hardworking, and you really had to put in the grind to get that pro card, right? It wasn't like you rocked up to your first show and just won it. But I want to go all the way back to a young Katie Morris, the first day in the gym. Before, you know, was bodybuilding something that was always on your mind, or like what was your reason for getting into fitness?
Yeah, so it's such a funny story. I've told this story so many times. So I was in England. I was working at Fitness First. I had an English boyfriend. We both worked at this gym. We used to like train really hard through the week and then just drink all weekend. It was so funny. And we used to go to like English pubs and just drink like 1,000 like beers and vodkas, and then go home and have a roast. And then he would teach classes on a Sunday to all the older women that loved him because he was pretty sexy and he had like long hair and the like hot English accent. And like all the old ladies would go off to, it was actually hysterical. All the old ladies would go off to his fitball class, and like I'd like run 15Ks on the treadmill because I was all inspired, and he ran the London Marathon. So I ran the Sydney Marathon when I got back from Sydney. But where was that story? Yeah, so when we were over there was a girl inside the Fitness First I was PTing from, which was my first PT gig, and she did a bodybuilding competition. And we went to watch her. And I said to Toby, we got to go and watch this girl. Like she's doing this weird like sport. I don't even know what it is. I think she's going to like get on stage in like a G-string or something, but let's go and support her. Like I would love to go and support her. Anyway, so we went to this like RSL in the middle of, you know, South England, North England, just down from Manchester. And I will never forget. And there was this commentator, and he got on the stage and all the figure girls came out. And he was American, and he's like, check out this girl, she's ripped. And then they were like, he was like commentating this crazy show. Anyway, this girl was Adele. She was in the original Big Brother house. And she was from our gym, and we watched her she was gay. She had her girlfriend following her around the gym for 16 weeks, you know, filming and documenting her entire prep. And when she came out on stage and I saw her, I was like, oh my God, like she had this gold bikini and they were wearing G-strings. She was in the figure division. And then when I got back from England, I was working at Wollongong Fitness first. And Damien Robinson or something, he was the PTC. So he was getting ready for a comp, and then that was probably about 12 months after I started PTing. So we had this whole convoy of people that drove up from Wollongong to Sydney to watch Damien on stage. But by then I'd been a PT for about 1 year. So the figure girls walked out on stage, and I'll never forget, Stu, they just walked out and I looked at them and I was like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. I have to
So
do
that was the moment, right? That's when the spark went off and it was like, all right, head down, blinkers on, let's do this.
Yeah, and then I contacted someone and I was like, local, and I said, look, I want to do a show. Like, I don't even know who do I talk to, what do I do? Like, I don't know anything about anything. I just know that I want to do one of these like funny competitions, and I want to look like those girls looked. And someone said to me, oh, Susie Blanche, like she's your woman, like she's your go-to girl. So I contacted Susie. She prepped me for my first show, and the rest is history.
That's what's phenomenal there. We've seen a bit of a common theme across most of our, I guess people who have reached good level of success in the fitness industry, and I guess it's applicable for most, is just the sheer amount of time in the game it takes, to get to actually achieve it. Like Stu said, you didn't just rock up on your first show and win it. Like we're talking, this is 05. We're talking 15 years, year in, year out of getting in shape back, in season, off season, in season, off season. Like, just think about how many hundreds of thousands of hours are in that. And I think that, there's a lot to be said for just really grinding at the craft to try and do what you're passionate about. I think if any of us three added up the amount of hours we do towards our given craft, if you looked at it logically, if someone told you at the start, hey, Katie, you'll get your pro card in 15 years, you might go, oh, I might just try tennis. It's a really remarkable thing. Anyone who does well, we hear this time all the guests we've had supplement store owners, we've had different CEOs of different companies. They all say the same thing. It's decades and decades. So good on you for that. That's really cool to hear that theme across yours as well. All these different people we interview, and they all have that common underlying thread that it takes years and years of hard work to get eventually where you want to go, despite what social media tends to really point out.
Yeah. Can I just intervene and make one comment there? And I have said this once in one of my posts a few months back on Instagram. Nick Jones, I was getting ready for I did the pro show, the Arnold Classic Pro Show in Melbourne. It was the 1 year I got an invite and I was so excited and I was working my ass off, and I'll never forget Tony Doherty when I got the invite. He texts me and he goes, congratulations, get your ass in shape. This is huge.
Oh, that'll get you going. If anyone in the country could get you going, it'd be Tony messaging you. Wow.
Yeah, when you get a message from Tony Doherty saying "get your ass in shape," you get your ass in shape, right?
Yeah, I was like this. I got it, boss. I got it. Anyway, so Nick Jones, I needed some supplements. I needed something. I think I wanted his protein. And he said, "I'll just come to the office to wherever his stuff is, his kitchen and his gym and his Gentech headquarters." Like literally nearly 4 years ago, he goes, I'll just come at 2:00 on Tuesday and I'll sort you out with some, whatever you need. So I just went there for I needed protein and I was happy he was just going to charge me wholesale. And then I got there and he's like, oh, do you need this? And what about this? And what about this one? And I left with a bag of this stuff. But the moral to this story is we got talking about working towards goals and how long it takes and et cetera, et cetera. And he said to me, how long have you been competing? And I said, by that stage, it was 12 years. And he goes, and how long did it take you till you feel like you were really good? Like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you knew you were good. And I said, that was 2015. And he goes, okay, and so what year did you start? And I said, 2005. And he goes, okay, so there's a theme here, right? I've always told people that it takes exactly 10 years to get good at anything. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's bodybuilding or lawn bowls or business, or it doesn't matter. 10 years, and see, it took you exactly 10 years till you said you knew you were good.
It's definitely, yeah.
It was amazing.
Oh, of all people to tell you that as well. Nick's very much another OG. We had a pleasure of interviewing him as well a few episodes back, and it was unreal.
Seen it.
Oh, it was so good to hear someone talk about the industry. You know, again, you know, talking about shows he competed in 20 years ago.
He's just such a passionate guy. I've got so much time for Nick Jones. He's a real gentleman.
It was phenomenal. It was really, and we had the exact same sort of talk as well. You know, when he's naming shows like the 97 Mr. You know, like Mr. Queensland, I'm like, wow, this shows the amount of just heritage and how much time it takes to come up in the game, really. And he's still in amazing shape 20, 30 years later. It's awesome.
He looks insane. Like, yeah.
He is. I think he's timeless. I think that because he's holistic.
Man.
Yeah, because I think it's his holistic nature, though. You know, he does things outside of bodybuilding for, say, for example, his mental health, or, you know, he'll do all these different holistic activities like meditation, and he takes care of every facet of his being, and it shows. You know, the guy is, like, to me, he's got more youthful exuberance than some 20-year-olds I know, which is something to be said. It's very cool.
Yeah, I have an immense amount of respect for Nick Jones as not even just as a bodybuilder. As a bodybuilder, I respect him a lot because of all of his competitive achievements, but I respect him as a human even more so. He's he's an amazing father. He's an amazing businessman. He's an incredible bodybuilder. He's just a good human.
It's cool to see, isn't it? When the people, like some of the good eggs that are occupied by the fitness industry. We've been very fortunate to have a lot of them in this you know, particular platform, which is unreal. And I think it's really cool to see some of the sort of forefathers, I guess, that are now. And yeah, he's just dropping new products as well only the last few weeks, which is really cool to see. So yeah, it's a fun throwback. But to circle back to yourself, Katie, what I'd find interesting, when you mentioned there, you were already a PT when you went to your first show and decided this is something you want to do. So I was curious if, you know, bodybuilding led to you know, doing personal training, or if you PT'd first and found it. But so were you already set on a fitness goal, on a fitness career before you sort of came to competing?
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to work in gyms. I did the gym instructor certificate when I was going through university, which was, oh my God, wow, 95.
Nobody pull out a pen and do the maths on that. No, I'm just kidding.
Ready? 95, 96, 97. Yeah, so when I was, you know, like at home on breaks or whatever through university, I did the gym instructor certificate. So that was a long time ago. And initially I was like, yeah, I'm going to do level 2 aerobics instructor.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing, right? I remember when I was a kid, my mum would go out on a Thursday night to aerobics class. And that was what a lot of women especially did in a gym. The women
100%.
There was women in the weight room, but it wasn't like it is now, right?
No. I remember I went to Lakeside Leisure Centre when I was 13.
I know the one very well. I know the very gym. That was my first gym as well, Katie.
Yes, I was on Weight Watchers with my mum because I got to year 7 and I was like, "Ooh, boys." So I just I needed to look, you know, my best for all the boys at high school. So my mum was on this Weight Watchers thing and I was like, yeah, like I'll go on Weight Watchers with my mum. That'll help me to like get a nice boyfriend. and then she would like put the diet up on the fridge with the magnets, and I just would like follow her diet. And then we all joined Lakeside Leisure Centre, and I would do like the bike and like.
Remember they used to have that super circuit there. Do you remember that?
The super
like,
circuit.
beep, and then you have to run. Yeah, they up the top section.
Seconds.
Yeah.
40 seconds per station, and then 20 seconds in between.
Yeah.
And then just like upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body.
It was almost, to be honest, it was almost like the first, I guess, version of like what we call F45 now, right?
100%.
that's what the super circuit was. I remember it very well.
See?
And I used to take school groups through there, and super circuit. It was very,
it was
very.
the original F45.
Katie, I want to take a slightly different tact now with sort of what we're talking about, because this industry, fitness, supplements, bodybuilding, it's a bit of a boys' club. And, you know, as a woman in this space, there's some stigma around it. You have to deal with sometimes negative social media comments from uneducated people. Can you take us through kind of what that looks like? So some of the sort of things that you girls in this industry have to deal with, and how you do combat that, what you do to sort of, I guess, overcome that.
Yeah, this is Pandora's box, but I'm going to open it right up for you, because I feel like if I can share some of my own personal experience, it will help other girls. This really is Pandora's box. So I feel like for me, it first got negative when I was knocking on the door of being good enough to turn pro, and everyone knew it. Mm-hmm. And I had a couple of people that were really like right there with me, and they had a camp of people that were in their corner, and then I had a camp of people that were in my corner. And I had fallen out with one of the guys that had a pretty strong voice in the Australian bodybuilding arena. I don't need to mention names. And he got pretty nasty. So the way that he did that was he was bullying me on social media. He was bullying me. He was ganging up on me. He had been told that I had talked about him, which was not true. And I copped it from him. So because he was affiliated with a girl that was going head to head with me, he made it quite unpleasant when I was preparing for the Amateur Olympia for me, right into when I did my pro debut, you know, doing coverage on the show and shouting out and tagging every single girl that was doing the show apart from me, when there was like 5 Aussies like doing the show and 2 of us were debuting at our pro debut. It was very hurtful. And the reason that I'm telling this story is because I think there's probably most people don't know that this did happen. There will be a small amount of people that do actually know that this did happen, but more so for the up and coming girls. Like, I'm going to just try and keep this like in a nutshell without going on too much about it. But what I will say about it is, I did get to the point, Stu, where I was so sad about it all that I wanted to retire from the sport. And it was equally sad because I had just turned pro. So for me, turning pro was very bittersweet, and I feel like there was I strongly believe there was a camp of people that are like, well, if you don't turn pro on stage, you don't fucking deserve it. And I battled with that a lot. I had Chris Thomas help me to earn my, so he was actually really good. Like, I have to say that, like, and he, you know, because I had all that, like, well, maybe I didn't deserve it. And he was just like, shut up, like, Katie, that's so not true. Like, you're an incredible figure competitor. Like, you absolutely deserved it. Whether or not you won it on stage or off stage, it fucking doesn't matter. Like, you turned pro because you fucking earned it, and just leave it. Like, don't open it up. Don't worry about what other people say or think. You know, there's jealous people everywhere, and just leave it. Like, don't worry about people that are not in your corner. Fuck them, Katie.
It's
like,
remarkable.
You got what you earned, and that's the end of it. And fucking, there's nothing more to say about it.
It's such a like a mental battle, this sport, isn't it? Like, because you can be in the best, like you said, you can be in the best shape of your life where you've obviously won a pro card in IFBB of all divisions, right? Like, especially winning at figure, like, you know, winning physique, figure, literally any category in IFBB shows a pro card is
but
a life.
Physique and figure is no joke. Yeah.
Oh, it's insane. Like, that is insane level. You know, and it takes, you know, as you said, decades to get into. So winning there, it's like interesting to see that we can still second guess ourselves and you do the whole way through.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so bizarre that you can be in the 1% of people walking the planet, you know, when you step on stage, and still have these self-doubts and still be going, oh, well, like, am I peeled? And you're walking around with veins in your abs and you're like, oh, could I be leaner? You know, and you're like, you got striations in your glutes and stuff. And
yeah.
it's amazing.
Such a good point there, Will, you know, because like myself, Will, anyone who looks at photos of Katie, her stage photos, any of the shoots she's put up on Instagram, you know, like, this is an incredible athlete. Hence why we have you on the show. But the fact that even you could doubt yourself, you know, I think it's a good lesson for just some of the girls out there who might be doubting themselves because of, you know, someone said something about, you know, the way they look or how they got to where they got to or whatever it is. How did you overcome this though, Katie, is what I want to know.
I really do want to answer this, and there's 2 points that I want to make. The first one is it was a very specific situation. I was at the airport and I was on the way to that show. I had so many people that like were just like, you got to go to, like, because I wasn't going to go. I actually didn't have money to go. Do you know what? I'm going to tell you, I didn't have money to go, and one of my sponsors pulled through to help me to fund the trip to Goa. And had I not have gone, obviously I would not have turned pro. The other person that I was good friends with at the time that we used to talk quite often was Chris Jenkins. And Chris Jenkins, when he found out that I was in the situation I was in, he reached out and he said, let me help you to get up there. And I was like, I hate taking, I don't like charity. So I tried to say no, and he was like, this is ridiculous. Like, you have to go, Katie. Like, you can't not go to that show. Anyway,
great guy, Chris, actually. Chris is a great guy as well. He was a coach of mine formerly as well. I used to train up at Camperdown Fitness with Chris. So
I love being able to share this stuff with people, because people probably don't know all of these things about, you know, these different people that were a part of me, you know, earning my pro status. So as it turned out, a couple of days later, one of my sponsors came to the party and they were like, look, we'll help. Because I went to them first and I said, this is the situation. But Chris had already said, let me help. Anyway, my sponsors ended up pulling through and went up, and then that's the way it happened. When I got to the airport, I got on social media and there was some real negative stuff. Basically, look, I think it's how you perceive it, but essentially it was some industry heavies, or like people that had a lot of impact, should I say, a lot of influence.
Yeah, part of the boys club that I was like, the whole industry is a big boys club, right? And if someone's in that boys club, you know, they have a lot of sway, a lot of pull, a lot of swing.
Yeah. So there was someone in the boys club and I was 3 days out, and I was at the airport on my way up to the show by myself to go and stay in an apartment on my own and to try and put this whole, like, you know, winning the title together and maybe turning pro, and all on my own. So I got to the airport, and one of those ringleaders from that crew wasn't ripping personally on me, but everyone knew I was doing the show, and they were basically saying, oh, who are the contenders for the pro card for figure? And they were naming everyone but me. And I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah. So I reached out to my close girlfriends, you know, Sharon, Asha, Amy Fox, and they were just like, Katie, like, fucking get off Facebook, stop reading it. You've got a job to do. Get on the fucking plane, go and turn pro. That's it. That's all. You've only got one job for the next 3 days. Don't worry about what people are saying. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Katie. You know your worth. You know you're fucking good. Go and get the job done. That's it. That's it. There's nothing more to say. So I went and did the show. The other thing I want to say to the girls about what happened for me after that was that because of that experience, Stu, I got stronger. So being put into that situation made me reassess the situation and go, okay, do you know what? Not everyone's going to be in your camp. Not everyone's going to be in your corner, and that's okay. So what it forced me to do was it made my self-belief stronger, because I didn't have a choice. I had to back myself even more than I did. And I already backed myself 95% of the way. But there was just that little tiny bit where if someone else threw their opinion in and it was someone that wasn't in my corner, it could rattle my cage, right? And then that would affect my confidence. And if my confidence has been compromised, then I'm in trouble as a competitor. So I had to block it out. So I just went on from pretty much the moment that I turned pro forwards. I just went on like with a whole different mindset of, I am an amazing competitor. I don't need anyone to tell me that I'm an amazing competitor. And I'm going to go and fucking, like shake things up on the pro circuit. And I don't give a fuck what people think, if they're on board or not. And that was it.
Yep.
I had to do it that way. And then, you know what? If you're in my corner, great. If you support me, awesome. If you don't, I fucking don't care.
I think it's really cool that through this negative set of circumstances, you actually received a gift from it, which was the gift of a thicker skin, really. It was a gift of being able to deflect things off you. You built a force field from that negativity. So without that, you might have still been going around and I guess absorbing insults, absorbing social media comments, because as a woman,
circumstances.
Exactly. And as a woman in this sport, even just from randoms on your social media, you're going to get some really strange, unusual, and negative comments, right? Like I see it all the time on a lot of especially a lot of the pro girls that I see, things said like, oh, you have masculine arms or whatever it might be. And that's sort of stuff that you have to block right out, right?
Yeah. I used to cop that as a figure competitor when, like the last few years of being amateur before I turned pro, and then as a pro figure competitor when I had a lot of muscularity for a female. That was when I copped a little bit of that stuff, just from randoms, actually from people I didn't know, but definitely not anymore, because obviously my physique has changed. It had to change.
Yeah. So let's talk about that transition into bikini a little bit. What sparked that? Was it sort of a decision that it suited your structure more? Was it advice from someone? Like, where did this switch to bikini come from?
So I did 3 pro figure shows: New Zealand, the Arnold Classic in 2017, New Zealand, March 2016, and then at the end of 2017, I went to Italy and I did the San Marino Pro, the one that Josh Lenardowitz won the 2 years before.
Oh, phenomenal.
And I went there thinking, top 10 is like the conservative goal and top 5 is the shoot for the stars goal. And I was in the 4th call out. I was in the arse end of the 4th call out. And I just remember like walking out of the dressing room and walking down the corridor, and like my eyes were down, and I looked from the ground up to these girls that were standing there waiting to walk in and go on stage. And as I was like, scanning their physiques, I just literally was like, oh my God, are these girls physique or are they bodybuilding? And it turned out they were figure. And I just had this moment, Stu, where I just saw what was in front of my eyes. And I said to myself, I'm not going to be competitive with these girls, but I'm going to go on stage and give it everything I've got regardless. Because I'm here. I'm in Italy, in a non-English speaking country, and I'm representing Australia, and I'm going to go out there and give it everything I've got. So, and within 3 months, I'd made the decision that I couldn't continue in that division, because I'm so competitive that being in a 4th call out, it's not enough for me.
What transitioned, I guess, in terms of nutritionally as well? Because this is something I always get fascinated with athletes. Because everyone has their different approaches. And it's particularly people who have gone back to back, prep to prep to prep. And, a lot of the times we do this with different coaches, or we do this off our own backs, and everyone picks up tricks of the trade. So what did it look like nutritionally when we were going for physique, where we were carrying significantly more muscle mass, through to bikini, for example? What did that look like for you? I guess did you purposely go through a phase where you were trying to lose muscle mass per se, or how did that look nutritionally as well?
So nutritionally, I halved my protein. That's not true. I probably went to about 60-65% protein of what I was ingesting as a figure competitor. And then my fats and carbohydrates were pretty much similar, like obviously off season. And then in prep, they were the same. Fats and carbs were the same. Protein was at probably about 60%, a little bit over half.
Yeah, gotcha. And what was the major, I guess, from that transition, I'd suppose, overall calorie intake too? Was like, obviously you were fueling a significantly more developed physique in the physique space. So I find this really quite interesting because we see it in the male space as well, as you transition and they grow. And I sort of always wonder where did you end up at your peak when you're at your most developed on stage? What did that look like, say, an off-season calorie intake? How much food were we putting down when we were trying to really get in the deep off season and grow in the physique days?
Look, I actually never used to count calories, but I'm going to say that it probably was somewhere around, Look, probably 2,000.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
And then I would diet down to 1,400.
Yeah, still quite on the late side.
In prep. And then bikini, I probably went down to about 1,300. I can't go lower than that because I still have a bit of, leftover muscle from figure still. So my metabolism goes.
That's a nice byproduct as well. I think of doing back-to-back preps is when your body's consistently been in shape year round for a decade. It just functions in a different space to normal people.
Yeah.
It just works differently.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting though. So those sort of they're quite conservative calories though. Like you said, for peak week being 13, 14, that's really good to see. Do you attribute that to do you do longer comp preps do you find normally, or do you just tend to sit in a leaner space most of your off season?
So I think I've probably been about 7-8 kilos above stage weight for the last 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
And bikini, look, I think there's always a plan to be leaner in your off season than what happens in reality. But since I started bikini, I have definitely been sitting at about 7 to 8 kilos above stage weight. But bear in mind, Will, my feedback when I've been doing bikini has very much been you're too hard.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Katie. I have noticed that you come in a lot harder and more diced than some of the other bikini girls. Has it been hard for you to try and hold back a little bit on how hard you normally come into a show? Like, how have you found that, like, to not torture yourself like normal?
Can I tell you, I have this photo. It normally is on my phone. What's it called? Phone thing?
Background? Your screensaver? Or
that one.
Screensaver.
And Anne-Marie Lasserre is a coach at the same World Gym that I'm at now. And she asked to see the photo the other day. Like, she was like, show me what you looked like at your last season in bikini. And where was it? And I said, this was LA. I feel like this is probably the best I've ever looked in my 15 years competing. And she had a really good look at the photo. And she was like, you look amazing. And I was like, they told me I was too hard. And then she just looked at me and she was like, but that's an incredible physique. And I said, yeah, but Anne-Marie, they don't want me to look like that. And she goes, I just really struggle getting my head around. Like she said, I watch you train since you've been working here. And I don't know I don't know if you can be a bikini competitor because you train like an athlete. And I don't think you're going to be able to get away with you can't put your foot on the gas. I don't know if you're ever going to be able to do that. You're an athlete.
I did often wonder if that would be a mental struggle, particularly from if you're going IFBB up around the physiques and figures and you're coming in with, veins in your obliques and stuff, it's full blown like the male bodybuilding in terms of, like body fat percentages. And then you're going from that to going, okay, we want you to come in slightly soft to actually be competitive. like it would be for me. I couldn't picture that during prep, trying to pull yourself back and go, oh, actually, no, I need to be softer. Like it's such a counterintuitive headspace. I would have thought from where you spent a decade. Like, do you like how do you do that coming into a show? Do you like you'd almost get ready and then put on some? Like, how do you...
To be honest, I
just sit there and eat tubs of butter, Katie. Give me the butter.
Get peeled then.
I am yet to succeed at that. I haven't been able to put it together. And I think people that know me, they understand that mentally they can identify what's going on. You know, I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I need a small waist, right? Mm. And I'm thinking my whole body needs to be little. So that's what's going on in my brain. Now, I did call Tony and Tony said, what are you weighing? Like this was for my second season for Pro Bikini. And I was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, yeah, look, I'm telling you, I interview all the girls backstage. They're about fit. Like Angelica, she's 53. Like, so I feel like that's where you should shoot for. Okay. Now, Tony didn't mean to say that to me, to give me a bum stare. He didn't. I know he was trying to do everything he could to help me. But the problem was that I've got so much lean muscle tissue in comparison to these other girls. I really believe I still do. That my 53 and their 53 is two different things.
Oh, yeah, vastly different. It's like when you see
Tony,
guys... Yeah, no.
Tony wasn't trying to... He just was trying to say, get small.
Yeah. It doesn't tell you, but just the weight alone tells you nothing about composition, right? It doesn't tell you anything about muscle density. It doesn't tell you anything about, you know, how much water you're holding. It doesn't tell you anything about body fat percentage. It just literally tells you at what force is the Earth's gravity pulling me towards itself. That tells us very little.
And I think that's actually a really good point, Stu. I think we should make this because thus far this has been all sort of, like we said before, in the 1% of people is what we've all been talking about so far. We're talking about preps and nutrition towards that and how to be, you know, high-level athletes. I think a lot of our listeners, we're lucky in that most of them they own supplement stores, they're in the fitness industry, they're trainers, coaches. We're lucky in that regard that this is very relevant content. But I think what would be handy, though, is for other people listening to this who might not be as deep end in the bodybuilding space or in our particular scene. So let's say you were to had someone approaching you that you were going to coach that were saying, you know, look, we want to try to achieve a decent physique. What are some of your first go-tos for them, though, without saying, okay, we need to, you know, weigh or track calories, you know, weigh every food, go through preps and so on. Like for the layperson or for someone just entering into the sport, what are your key foundational things you say you need to nail this, broad stroke it?
Yeah.
You know, like what are some of those sort of principles that you would just say for someone to have a pretty
so symmetry, muscularity, conditioning, stage presence and posing.
Okay. They're the broad stroke sort of areas.
Now, the level of conditioning is got everything to do with the division that you're competing in. And I believe, like, I've got a progress picture from 5 weeks out from my last season and on comp day, and I've put the back pose side by side. And I promise you that if I put that 5 weeks out level of conditioning on stage in LA, I would have been in a higher call out than I was. I put money on it.
You just got too diced.
Yeah, right? So the issue wasn't, I don't believe, wasn't the level of muscularity that I had at that point, because I had gotten smaller and I had lost more muscle since my first Bikini Pro show. The issue was the level of conditioning. For
the class, to make it relevant.
It was the only issue. The posing was there. I got
Katie, just for people,
I got symmetry, but I was too hard in the glutes and hammies. So when you walk,
Katie, just for the people,
they're looking at separation and they're like, they're freaking out.
Just for the people who don't know the difference between all these women's category, can you just tell our listeners the criteria for bikini? What are the judges looking for?
Yeah, so bikini is really sexy. So your presentation and your stage presence needs to be on point. It needs to be very very feminine, very sexy, very sassy, all of that. So presentation and posing is key. If you don't know how to do the bikini posing, you've got to get the person that's best in your area to learn from. That's really, really important.
No visible abs though, right?
No, yes. So getting onto the physique. So it has to have flow. It needs to be balanced top to bottom. Obviously your prominent body parts need to be the capped, nice round capped shoulders, not big like figure, but shape. They need to have shape in the shoulders. A smaller version of the delt in the figure division. So the shape, but without all that muscularity. And then a really little waist. So really nice taper into like a tiny, teeny little waist and really full round glutes. Now, the fullness doesn't come from body fat. The fullness comes from muscularity. So you actually need to have all three parts of your glute muscle developed, like really developed. And then you need to have a coach that understands nutrition enough to know how to peak you. So when you get on stage, your muscles aren't flat, because if your glutes are flat, they're not going to look the way the judges want them to look on the stage.
But by the same token, we don't want to see any kind of striations or anything in them, right? So instead
every
of sitting
time
at that,
I've been on stage, I've been marked down for having muscle separation every time.
Yeah. So we want to be sitting like somewhere around maybe that, like say 7% rather than that 5% or 8%. Yeah.
No, because I'm 7.5 on a DEXA for the last 5 years.
Wow.
For the last 6 years.
You're putting me to shame there, Katie.
Wow, that's
I get lean.
That's
I get really lean.
Out of curiosity, talking about the side that no one talks about when you step off stage, when we're getting to be 7% body fat as a female is hormonally just a train wreck in a lot of cases. Like for a guy, 7% is hormonally destructive. Like if you look at let's go outside the IFBB, for example, even tested athletes in the natural space. If you look at blood panels from those guys during comp prep, we'll see guys with their basal metabolic rates dropping 47% and stuff. Like we've seen guys with a basal metabolic rate of literally their BMR might be 1,400 cal, and we're like 2,800 on a healthy guy sort of thing, and it's incredible. So when you put this sort of shift those gears down for what the female BMR is at the end of a lot of comps, amenorrhea and also hypothyroidism being very, very common. How have you run into sort of issues post comps before, and how have you sort of gotten around those? Because a lot of people don't talk about this side of competing.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm happy to talk about it. As I said, I think a lot of people know that I've been around the sport for a long time, and I kind of feel I'm at a point now where if I can be more of a role model to the girls coming up through the sport and the girls that don't have 15 years competing experience, then that's definitely something that I would love to do. Like I want to feel like I can help girls to understand like what is going on with their body when they're on season and off season, and the mentality and what happens to your emotions and how your hormones being out of whack and what does that feel like and all of that. I don't think I've ever gotten post-comp right.
Yep. It's hard to.
And it's always a little bit ugly, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nearly impossible too though, right? Like you're going from like bodybuilding is controlled starvation in reality. When we're like all things are prepped and you're getting to a place where you're literally fighting your body, its evolution, the whole step. Like anything below, like, once you get below, like, even when you're looking at when they broad stroke categorizing Gen Pop, and they're saying women are meant to be, a healthy range is 20 to 30% body fat for women, say, and for men it's sort of 15 to 20 for a normal non-athletic population. When we're talking 5s and 7s, and in men's, like even lower, and you're like, this is literally on the brink of death when you get to stage, and you're trying to then perform.
And I look at probably like my off season. I feel like my off season I would sit max 15.
Yep.
And it's still 10% lower than like your average female walking down the street.
Yeah, 15% peeled, like really is and to maintain that year round is absurd. Like it's just remarkable to think of what it does and its implications. It's amazing. It's testament. It's an awesome feat. But I just really think we owe it to people to sort of also shine light on all sides of the game, because it gets glorified getting up on stage, and it's a lot of people, it's the highlight reel on social media we see where they're like, oh, this is fantastic. A lot of young guys get caught into competing too, and they don't realize they're going to drive. It's like a controlled train wreck for your body.
Yeah. I'm gonna add something that I don't know whether or not both of you wanted to talk about, and I'm more than happy to talk about this.
We talk about anything, Katie. There's nothing off limits.
Anything's all good to go.
So I'm gonna say this for any girls that this might be helpful information. I have been a natural IFBB pro since I started competing in the bikini division. Now, that was a choice that I made. It was a personal choice. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. And it was something that I wanted to do. And it was one of the reasons that I made the decision to move in the direction that I moved in. Now, I don't have to justify my choice or decision to anybody. I don't care really what anybody thinks about it, but I made a choice to be a natural athlete when I switched divisions. Now, the reason that I'm saying this is because I want girls to know that I do a contest prep without PEDs. I don't take any leaning agents. I don't take anything. Obviously, I don't need to take anything to put on muscle. I don't need to take androgens, or I don't need to put anything in my body where my body is confused, wondering if it's female or male. I don't need to do any of that. So obviously, because of where I've come from, and because of all those years competing in a division that was a lot more muscular than where I am. So it's got everything to do with my background. However, I think one of the really important points is if you put the groundwork in the gym, day in and day out for years and years and years, and then you decide you want to pursue the competing career, you do not, especially in the bikini division, I do not believe that you need to be assisted, and you can absolutely be natural. And I know because I'm doing it.
Thank you. About time
that
someone
is
said
awesome.
that. Oh my, it is really about time someone said that, because it's such a, it sort of goes in the male space, PEDs, and we're actually going to get on Bill Llewellyn as well, who wrote the handbook of anabolics, basically the Bible towards PEDs, and we're going to go really into it, because I was sort of hinting at that before when we were talking about the dark side of competing as well. Like we're really putting our bodies to the limit, basically, and holding it there for 4 months at a time when we're prepping. And it's awesome to see, particularly in the bikini division though. It's sort of almost has gone too extreme now, where people go, oh, I'm going to compete, right? Let's throw in some some PEDs. That's inevitable. It has to be. But you're dead right. Like in particular categories, that's not the case. Like it doesn't need to be.
Well, and I think the scary thing though is that a lot of girls doing bikini that I'm seeing right now think that they need to be using stuff. So I think that this is an amazing point for Katie to make. I know girls who are 22 years old getting ready for bikini comps, and they're using things Anavar, clenbuterol, and they think that it's just a given that they're going to use. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're doing bikini. You don't need to be using these things. All right. If we look at a professional, figure pro, generally speaking, they're going to be using PEDs. That's a whole nother thing. But
yeah, I was.
Yeah, it's just a given part of the sport. The level of muscular development, you're fighting your physiology. Same with male bodybuilding. You can't achieve what they want us to achieve a lot of the times in IFBB men's opens. It's just, you don't just walk around with 105 kilos with abs, without some sort of assistance.
Do you know, I'll tell you, this is just my personal opinion. Look, it's probably muscularity all over, but for me, I feel like when I know if an athlete is assisted or not, the telltale sign for me is the delts.
Yeah, it is delts.
You know why? Because your delts don't look like that if you're natural. You don't have delts on a girl that is taking PEDs look like shoulders that belong to a guy. That's it. They're
well, I mean,
right?
we're dealing
we don't have big round shoulders as a female. We don't. our shoulders don't look like that naturally.
That's a really interesting space, actually. There's a bit of chemistry behind that. And that's to do with your androgen receptor placement as well. And it's why in guys, it's the first place that gets overdeveloped as well straight away when the PEDs are played with. Traps and delts are the first place to grow because that's where we have the saturation of androgen receptors for the actual exogenous to bind to. And it's the same reason you guys can grow phenomenal quads. You have a lot of estrogen receptors in quads and glutes, whereas guys have a lot less receptors, like a lot less proliferative receptors around that area. So we sort of both have our traits, but you're dead right there. When you said delts, it makes perfect physiological sense. That's where a lot of receptors are. Where if you take a hormone, that's where it's going to bind and develop. So yeah, spot on.
And I think that's an important note that you make as well there when you talk about looking like developing masculine looking muscle. When we talk about PEDs, generally we're talking about synthetic versions of male hormones. So if you're a girl, if you can get around using these things, it's a good idea to get around it because it's not something you want to be using if you don't need to, and what Katie's saying is you don't need to. Putting a male hormone in your body is going to cause some issues. There's no way around that for a female, right? And we've all seen it. Katie, you're a lot closer into the female circle than we are, so you would have seen some tremendous issues that we're probably not even aware of. But if you can avoid using male hormones, avoid them.
I think at the end of the day, this is like my message that I would send out there to any females that are kind of, contemplating or have already started moving in that direction. Just know what you're putting in your body and understand that if you're messing around with androgens, you're at some point, your body is going to think that it's male. And you cannot do that without anticipating or expecting virilization on some level. And let me break that down in case you don't understand what that means. Your body is going to start behaving in a way that a male body behaves. For example, the deepening of the voice, the enlarging of certain body parts, losing your hair if you're taking harsh compounds. These are real issues, girls, and you cannot sidestep or avoid this stuff happening. And if you're hyper responsive to compounds, then you will be hyper responsive to the negative side effects. So you just have to go in with your eyes wide open. That's all I would say. It's
a whole new level of. I was speaking to a really good friend in the industry as well about this recently, and it's never spoken about. But apart from trying to repair, even as a natural athlete after stage, or in a lot of times we're seeing now, a lot of just recreational, just weekend warriors running the same amount that you'd see a pro get ready for in a show. And, you're trying to ask your body to rebound from controlled starvation to normal homeostasis in hormonal sense. And then you throw in PEDs and have to do the post-cycle environment. And you're coming from, you're trying to go from absolute starvation calories to normal. Your hormones are through the floor. And you're joking yourself if you don't think this causes long-term issues. At some point, you got to pay the piper if you want to be at the real top end of the spectrum. You can't maintain that. It's really unusual now. It wasn't in the golden era. They never really. It was blast and cruise wasn't a theory. It wasn't even a discussion that you'd stay on for years now. So the industry's got a side that hopefully Stu and I are going to delve into soon with when Bill Llewellyn comes on, and we can really go talk about the science and take a lot of stigma away, because a lot of people don't talk openly about that side of competing, but it's such a big reality and such a impactful thing that I think young girls and guys don't understand what they're doing to themselves. And
no, they don't. I know. Will, I know coaches. I've actually spoken to a coach recently, a very good prep coach, who has let a girl go for this exact reason. It wasn't like, look, I don't dislike you. You're a nice girl. I wish you all the best with your competing, but I'm trying to tell you that you don't need to run all this stuff and you're not hearing me, so I can't work with you. I think you'd be better to go and work with someone else. And he did it in a really respectful way, but she wasn't listening. She wanted to run A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, and he was like this as a coach, hang on, whoa, you're 24, just enough. Like, no.
Yep.
I
guess
said, have them there ready, and if we need them, you know, we'll use them accordingly. But because people get in their ears and they're young and they're impressionable, they think more is more. More is not more. More is only more when you're talking about training and the work that you're putting in the gym, not outside of the gym.
100%. And Katie,
I'm passionate about this topic, just in case you didn't notice.
No, 100%.
It's great. It's a really good role model to have for a lot of young athletes, male and female. Good. About time someone said it too. Like it's really, really cool. But Stu, go on.
Katie, I wanted to get onto, while we still got some of your time, you know, obviously being that you've just announced to everyone that since going bikini, you are a natural athlete. I'm sure that nutritional supplements play a bigger role in your, I guess, in your nutrition than they would have before. Can you talk us through some of the nutritional supplements that you use, and I guess the part that they play in what makes you look the way that you look?
Yeah, to be honest, Stu, it actually hasn't really changed that much. I'm a bit of a conservative supplement user. I'm really big on just letting the diet do the work. And anyone that that has worked in a gym or trained in a gym that I train at will tell you that I train hard. So
it shows, Katie. It shows.
And it's the only way I know how to train. I don't really know how to train any other way. I don't know what else to say about it. I train hard. Like it's always like that. There's no days where I do 70% intensity. I'm either on or I'm off. And when I walk into the gym and I go to train, I'm there to get the job done. So that's how I train. So with regards to supplements, I take L-carnitine twice a day. So if I'm prepping, I will take it before dinner and also before cardio in the mornings. I will always take a thermo. I will always take a sleeping supplement, and I'll try and take a pre-workout, something that's pretty mild, because I'm not big on feeling like I'm at a dance party when I'm training. I like to feel my workout, and I want to feel like I'm there, like, you know, but I like having a little bit of energy. So I'll just take something that's not like crazy strong and is not too heavily caffeinated.
Do you use a protein at all, Katie?
Yeah, and then just protein, but funnily enough, I don't take protein after training.
Okay.
I eat my lunch after I train.
Yeah, right. Gotcha. So yeah, that is the OG method, isn't it? The whole food post workout. Yeah, classic.
I'm all about the basmati rice and I've actually got a post workout meal I've been running for years. It's basmati. And Food for Fitness do it. It's barramundi fillets, fresh lemon wedge, broccolini, and basmati rice.
That's the secret Katie post-workout meal tip. If you want to look like her, that's what you've got to be eating post-workout.
That's where it's at.
Yeah.
It's so funny, Katie, that you say you're a minimalist when it comes to supplements, though, because interestingly enough, you know, I've made my entire career out of supplements, but I'm a minimalist when it comes to these things as well. I want people to get the majority of their nutrition and sustenance from real food. I would prefer people to get everything they need from their food, but if we have gaps, that's where I use supplements, just to fill in the gaps.
100%.
That's what I use supplements for. And sure, you know, we use, like you said, thermos, pre-workouts to, you know, if it's going to be the difference between, say, for example, going to the gym or not going to the gym, I'll say, yeah, sure, use a pre-workout if it's going to give you some, you know, pep you up and get you in there. Use a thermo if it's just going to help, you know, get you a little bit leaner when you're already dieting and you're already doing the output that you need to do. But you know, something that I think people are confused about is they think that we're trying to tell them these supplements are going to do the work. And no one's saying that. I don't think anyone out there is actually saying that. What we're saying is these are things you can use as additions to, additions to the work that you're willing to put in. You put in the work, we can amplify it a little bit. But amplifying zero is still zero. So, you know, it's really interesting that you're a minimalist, because I'm a minimalist when it comes to supplements. And don't worry, those proteins behind me, they're not all for me.
I think
And I'll tell you where that came from with regards to competing. Charlie Duca.
Ah, cool. Yeah, fantastic. I was lucky enough to cross circles with Charlie recently. Actually, I'm overdue to catch up with that guy to pick his brain on some old.
You've got to get him on here on the podcast.
Yeah. I might need a translator, but
no one will understand a word he says, but he's very passionate.
Oh, it is a fantastic spot, and I was lucky enough to be a sponsor of Katie as well for a good period of time for some of the same principles we spoke about today, and I think. Very much the minimalist but effective stuff. Things in the range that were definitely essentials during prep, but nothing overboard. But I think the sleep.
Yeah, what I'm using now is what I was using from Primabolic. So just something to help me sleep. Something to give me a bit of energy to get my cardio done at 5 a.m. before clients, and just like a good clean L-carnitine, and just like a little bit of something just to get me into the gym and like pushing my weight sessions literally, and like a good protein powder, and that was literally it.
I think the sleep space, it's so good that people are really prioritizing that now. I'm really anal about sleep hygiene and really focusing on sleep quality to get results, because once I see it time and time again with people that I'm prepping now, as soon as you see increases in daily stress and their sleep starts to deteriorate, everything stops, like to a grinding halt. As soon as sleep quality, like you can't out supplement 1 or 2 hours of extra sleep a night, or you can't out supplement the 6 hours they have being golden sleep. Like
can I tell you, I remember when I was getting ready for New York, I was with WNBF, it was 2007, and I was living in Manly getting ready for the world titles. It was like my first pro show in a natural federation. And I had this flatmate, and he used to go to Manly Wharf Bar and like pick up all the girls and bring them home and have loud sexual intercourse. And I was in the next room, like 6 weeks out from like the world titles in New York, like, just shut up. And on those nights, I would wake up and get on the scales, and I would not lose a gram of weight. And on the nights that I slept right through, I would average like 4 to 6, about 400 grams a day.
Yeah.
But if I never had sleep, my weight wouldn't move.
Yeah, you can't.
Sometimes it would go up.
Honestly, they've shown there's amazing data. They found the difference between 6 hours sleep versus 8. That 2 hours was 55% less fat loss. It was like, it was ridiculous. Like,
oh, great. I only get 6.
Up it, mate. Up it. But this is awesome. I think this has been a really valuable episode, Kate. I think we've covered all sorts of highlights and lowlights of competing. We've got given some good advice to some young punters coming up in the game, as well as people who might currently be in it that might, think twice around a few different protocols or pick up some new ones. So I think we've really brought a lot of value to our listeners. Thank you, Katie, for really shining a light on some stuff that other people might not always want to talk about. Really, really awesome.
You are most welcome. Thank you for having me on the show.
No,
Thanks.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks so much, Katie. It's been a real pleasure chatting to you. And we will, guys, please make sure you subscribe to our channel, leave a review, and leave a rating for us as well, guys. Thanks so much for listening in.